guys, what's up? So I've been getting more into Don Quixote, trying to read it, trying to finish it, but specifically with these, correspondences of Bacon and Shakespeare in mind. We went over some of this before, but I'm just going to briefly go over this until I go into some new stuff. As we could see, Bacon in his notes says all is not gold that glisters. And Don Quixote says, all is not gold that glistereth. And of course, in The Merchant of Venice, all that glisters is not gold. So there's a number of these correspondences. Might overcomes right, and the only logical explanation is that they're the same person. Okay, they're not just picking up on the same ideas in different spots in Europe. That's not how this works. These are original ideas, the naked truth. Okay, so there's a whole list. I can send a link to that. There's like about 50 correspondences there. And then we saw some more proof that I found myself, how Don equals 57 in K-Cipher, and Quixote equals 157 in K-Cipher. And as we know, Frau Rosie Cross is the Rosicrucian Society that Bacon founded, and that equals 157 as well in simple cipher. So now all we have to do is minus Quixote from Don, 157 from 57 to get 100, which of course is Francis Bacon in simple cipher. Okay, and it's more of a reference here. Sorry, it's my bad handwriting, but you get the idea. This is when I looked up my own name, all those correspondences, but yeah, it's the simple cipher, and then the K cipher literally starts at the letter K, but the I is 35 instead of 9, H is 34 instead of 8, etc. And you see Frau Rosie Cross is 157 in simple cipher. In the K cipher, it's 287. Bacon is 33 in simple cipher and 111 in K cipher, and 100 in simple cipher for Francis Bacon, but 282 in the K cipher. So anyway, that's just for reference. Now, what I did, of course, was look at these so-called English translators named Thomas Shelton, some mystery guy we've never seen or heard from ever in history. He just randomly shows up and starts translating the greatest novel of all time. So, what I noticed that if you add up Thomas Shelton's name in the simple cipher, 160, and the K cipher, 264, the difference between that is 104. Okay, don't worry about all these other numbers. I won't get into that right now. But yeah, so the difference between the K and simple cipher of Thomas Shelton's name is 104. Now, if we just do the difference in Cervantes' name, just Cervantes, simple cipher is 101, K cipher is 205. What's the difference? 104. Again. So again, how can the so-called translator and the real guy Cervantes have the same gematria codes, okay? And we could see 264 is the sum of the K cipher for Thomas Shelton, whereas Saavedra, Quixote's full name, or Cervantes' full name, the difference between the sum of the simple and the K cipher is 264, okay? So I thought that was somewhat relevant, mostly the 104, I think, because they're using the same things, just the difference between their simple and K cipher values, 104, and that's that. And, I thought that would be that, until I kept going. All right, I did find one more little thing that I'd like to show y'all. And throughout the novel, we're actually told who the true author is, Cid Hamet Benengeli. But it's all satire. It's like a joke. It's like, I am just the stepfather of this novel. The true author is this Arabian guy, Cid Hamet Benengeli, even though that name doesn't sound Arabian whatsoever. And it's mentioned 33 times in Don Quixote, this name, okay, and variations of it, altogether 33 times. And of course, 33 is Bacon, okay? It's Bacon in simple cipher, so he hides his name that way. However, let's take Cid Hamet Benengeli simple cipher. It equals 131, just adding those letters. And then if you take Cid Hamet Benengeli in the K cipher, you get 418, okay? Two boring numbers. But of course, when you subtract 131 from 418, you get 287, which again is Frau Rosie Cross in the K cipher. Earlier in Don Quixote, we saw Frau Rosie Cross is 157 in the simple cipher, but in K cipher, it's 287. Okay, so that's another stamp of approval on this Baconian issue that we're running into with all this stuff. And this is just a fascinating essay. It's about 120 pages going into more detail. I found those cipher things on my own, so that's an original thing that I'm probably going to email to the Francis Bacon Society later, but I just want to make a video of it first. And there's even a complicated part in the novel where there's like a whole ABC. He has, let's see, Camilla's maid Leonella tells her not to worry about her affair with Lothario, saying that he has many good qualities, the whole ABC. He is, she tells her, amiable, bountiful, courteous, dutiful, all this stuff in alphabetical order, all these different adjectives. So how are you going to do that from Spain, from Spanish to English back to Spanish? Okay, so it gets pretty complicated, and these are just some of the Spanish words used instead. And you can see these are not the same words at all. Like, you can't do a translation and not have the same words, but due to the difficulty of alphabetizing the text, just like when the Bible has the Hebrew in a specific order, it's impossible to do an English translation of that. So also does this Spanish text have some questionable, originations. Okay, the text implies that the Spanish was not the first, and that the so-called Thomas Shelton's English translation was before the English. Okay, these are just a couple little things. We can go into some later. Yeah, I just basically favorited the whole essay because it's so interesting, and it goes into a lot of different stuff. But again, well, if it weren't for these 70 similar quotes, I wouldn't have looked into it. But now I'm reading Don Quixote. I'm fascinated with it because of all of these secrets, and just the fact that it's possibly Francis Bacon again, and the fact that if it was Francis Bacon, this implies also that Bacon wrote the first novel ever. Bacon wrote the greatest plays. He created the scientific method, essentially, and now he's the author of the greatest novel of all time. Oh, and of course the sonnets themselves. Oh, and he has books about creating ciphers. So if this is him, he's going to hide his ciphers. And guess what? I just found a few that no one ever has. What evidence is there that Miguel de Cervantes wrote Don Quixote? There is no manuscript, no letter, no diary, no will, no document that proves that he wrote this masterpiece, just as in the case of Will Shakespeare. He has no manuscripts or anything either. And what do we know about Thomas Shelton? And who is Cid Hamet Benengeli, an Arabian historian, so-called, who we are told by Cervantes is the real author? Well, it's no one. It's all a joke. The names are made up so as to correspond to the Baconian ciphers that Francis Bacon himself created. Okay? And that's that. Okay? It doesn't really... It's not shocking to me anymore. What's shocking is the ignorance and stupidity of the world, really. That's more what's annoying to me, is the fact that even when we discovered Northumberland manuscript in 1867, we still don't care that William Shakespeare and Francis Bacon's names are written on the exact same piece of paper in Bacon's possessions. Okay, we just call it the Northumberland manuscript. No, it's the Bacon-Shakespeare bulletproof, smoking gun. Sorry, I said bulletproof because that car honk threw me off. It's the smoking gun, okay? And Don Quixote has a number of smoking guns as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to get that off my chest because I found out a couple days ago, but I've been kind of busy, so yeah, there's that. So, Cid Hamet Benengeli, the difference between the K cipher and the simple cipher is 287, which equals Frau Rosie Cross. And the difference between the simple and K cipher for Thomas Shelton, so-called translator, and the so-called real author, just Cervantes, is 104. Same signature. And then, of course, we see Don Quixote itself. You minus 157 from the 157 to get 100 to get Francis Bacon, blah, blah, blah. It's so hard to mouth or word mathematics. You kind of just have to visualize it and look at it. So I'll shut up and you can pause the video and go over your own proofs. later. Oh yeah, what are the implications of this? Well, that one man basically created all of the arts and civilization and literature and was the founder of, and he happened to be the founder of modern day Freemasonry. So he's not only into ciphers, but into secrets specifically. And he said he won't be really appreciated in his own age, but after he's dead, he'll be really known for his true works that he wasn't allowed to reveal at the time, but told all his Rosy Cross brethren like Ben Jonson and all the rest. And I'll say one thing about Edward de Vere. Sorry, since I'm already going. Edward de Vere did not write the plays. He's got about 5 poems to his name. It does not make, or maybe like 50 pages of literature to his name. So when people are on the Oxfordian train, it's wrong. Bacon is the originator of this. And we don't have 50 correspondences of Edward de Vere and Cervantes or Edward de Vere and Shakespeare, but we do have 50 correspondences at least with the Cervantes and Bacon. And over 800 of Bacon and Shakespeare, which I'm still going through slowly but surely on my channel. Okay? So, I have not slept one wink in Cymbeline. And then Don Quixote without a wink of sleep. Don Quixote, what put you in this pickle? The Tempest, how camest thou in this pickle? Like, what other author was using these words like this? No one. Bacon is Shakespeare, is Cervantes. Is Shelton, but he's not Cervantes. Cervantes obviously is a real man, but none of his other works are half as smart, insightful, or entertaining as Don Quixote. All of his other works suck. I'll plainly state that. And you could read that essay which goes into that. So once again, Bacon has some known Spanish author playwright take the title for his own works. And then he disguises it by saying, well, the Shelton English translation was back in 1611 or something, whereas Cervantes' Spanish was 1605. So how's that possible? Well, it's possible because they released the Spanish one first and waited a few years and then released the original Shelton Bacon text and just say it's an English translation. It's that simple. It's not that complicated. It is if you have an agenda to follow, though, or if you're closed-minded, which is actually 90% of the world, so never mind. I'll take it easy.